And then when you look at what Israel has done since October 7th, they had the moral high ground. They had the sympathy of the whole world. They had the sympathy of America. And it's a moment where they could have been magnanimous and changed history. And I wish they had, and I would have been super proud of them if they had. But instead, they have now chosen to kill about 15 times the number of civilians that Hamas has killed. And if you say killing civilians is terrorism, I agree. That's why I condemn Hamas. That's why I also condemn the right-wing government of Israel for massacre after massacre, and 15 times worse than Hamas. Jesus. So if you think that that's not relevant, then you're on a different planet.
I mean, don't you think there's a big difference between what Israel has done since October the 7th and what Hamas has done? Because Israel have been trying to defend themselves and trying to wipe out Hamas terrorists.
Yeah, I know. So first of all, it's the same excuse that all empires use. And so let's do a bifurcation, then I want to get back to the empires. When it comes to Israel, we're in a really unique situation because Jews have been oppressed throughout the history of the world, almost everywhere they've been. And so the yearning for a safe haven in creating a Jewish state in Israel is very understandable. Okay. Now, I don't want to get back into an original debate about Zionism but taking the land of the Palestinians is not right, etc. I understand both sides of that equation, but I understand why Israel needed to exist, etc. But to take that idea and say, oh, that's why Israel is the oppressed in this dynamic over the last 75 years is absurd. No, Israel's military is about at least 200 times more powerful than anything the Palestinians have. So to pretend that they are at large, they're certainly the victims on October 7th, but at large over these last 50, 75 years that Israel is the victim and they are the oppressed by the Palestinians is, again, if you're not enormously biased, it's a comical point of view. No one else in the world thinks that the Palestinians are oppressing the Israelis. Everyone can see with their own eyes that it's the Israelis massively oppressing the Palestinians. So that's just a stone cold fact. So in terms of how that plays out, so when Israel says, oh, I have a right to defend myself, well, that's exactly what the Ottoman Empire said as they committed the Armenian genocide. They said, well, the Armenians hit us first. Yes, a small group of rebels, understandably, wanted independence from the Ottoman Empire. That didn't mean you should massacre their civilians. And the same thing is true here. Hamas is a small group within the Palestinian territories. They attack Israel. And then Israel says, okay, now we're going to butcher the civilians in response. Well, that's a genocide and it's ethnic cleansing. And the fact that you were hit first does not excuse you killing 10, 15 times as many civilians. And one last thing, when you see 2,000-pound bombs being dropped in residential areas, the propaganda of, oh, we're trying to get Hamas and they're using human shields. Again, look, for people who are biased, that works beautifully. They go, oh yeah, that's it. Hamas had it coming. We had to kill their civilians. Hamas tricked us into it. Well, how come you don't get tricked into it? Let's try that. Okay, so don't kill their civilians because then they say, well, it's because they're in the tunnels. But now the IDF has shown us the tunnels are almost completely unaffected by the bombing. So it turns out they barely killed any Hamas fighters who were all hiding in the tunnels. All they're doing, and now even Joe Biden acknowledges the indiscriminate killings of civilians. And I know Hamas is not better than that, but I was hoping that Israel was better than that. But unfortunately, they've shown yet again that they are not.
So I totally understand what you're saying. And my personal thoughts on this situation is what Hamas did on October 7th, like you believe this as well, is totally and utterly wrong. And it's an absolutely horrific thing. But I see a big, big difference between what Hamas have done and what Israel have done. Hamas, what they've done is they've terrorized, they've really just killed and massacred 1,200 people in Israel. Israel have done, and now, like you mentioned, there should be a lot of question marks on what they've done and how they've done it. But I think they've really got a right to defend themselves against Hamas.